ruckus about the situation, and Wells Fargo Bank finally refunded the money. But you need to remember, Wells Fargo was fined $380 million for laundering drug money. They were even carrying the leasing contracts on smuggling aircraft. The banks are all criminal operations. Alan Greenspan admitted it. It's fraud and criminality. Now, meanwhile, Goldman Sachs is very unhappy with the way the alternative media and the internet are portraying it. And apparently they took issue with a website by a gentleman by the name of Mike Morgan, who had a blog called Facts About Goldman Sachs. And the URL for the blog was goldmansachs666.com. And Goldman Sachs has hired a lawyer to basically issue a cease and desist order to shut it down, because they don't like having bad things said about them. And Goldman Sachs, or as we like to call them, Golden My Sachs, are clearly living in the 19th century, where they think they can simply go out and shut down a media outlet with a lawsuit, and that will be the end of it. Because if they succeed in shutting down Mike's website, 20 more will immediately rise to take its place the very next day. If you don't want the bad reputation, stop doing the bad things. Now, let me get up a little bit of music here that we need to have. 4 days and I forget where everything is. There we are. All right, over in Wisconsin, farmers are now mobilizing with their tractors to support the union and teachers who are protesting in the Wisconsin Capitol. And I told you earlier in the show where Michael Moore was writing this blog article about how the U.S. has a lot of money, and so does Wisconsin. It's being concentrated by design in the hands of the very, very few and the very, very rich. And he just, moment of impulse, got onto the airplane, flew to Wisconsin, and joined the protesters there. And my hat's off to him for that. That was an amazing thing. His speech is wonderful. We've got a video of it at whatreallyhappened.com, and it was just a very moving, to-the-point speech about what's going on up there. Remember, this is not about teachers, and it's not about unions. That's the reason the farmers are flocking to the capital of Wisconsin, and they're coming on their tractors, which means if they get annoyed, they've got really heavy machinery that they can throw into the fray there. Hopefully it will stay peaceful. But that's going to be up to the soon-to-be ex-Governor Walker, because people are very angry at the way they're being treated. And the farmers understand something. This is not about unions and it's not about teachers. It is about Wall Street going on a fraud, the biggest fraud in the history of the world, and getting caught, being sued by thousands and thousands of foreign banks and investment companies to be forced to buy back all the fraudulent investments, and then turning around and dumping the losses onto the American people, $12.3 trillion. And the farmers understand that if Governor Walker gets the teachers to have to work for less money, it won't stop with the teachers. It'll be postal workers and electricians and plumbers and road layers and, yes, the farmers. And the farmers are already struggling. Now, reality is coming back in here. Over a 16-year span, over the last 16 years, Wisconsin teachers' salaries have actually lagged behind the private sector. This propaganda that they're making huge amounts of money and they really should give it up for the common good is nonsense. By staying as teachers, they've made less money than their counterparts working in the private sector. I think if we have good teachers, they're worth every penny that we're going to pay them. And I'm a great believer in let's bring the bottom up to match the top. Let's not have the rich go on a gambling binge and then say, oh, for the common good we must share the sacrifice, and all of you working people who had nothing whatsoever to do with the mortgage-backed security fraud, you're going to have to give up your standard of living because somebody's got to pay for this whole thing, and let's face it, those Wall Street CEOs are all really good campaign contributors. All right, we got to take a break here. We'll be back, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
estrogen dominance, a brand new 20th century disease, a phrase coined by Dr. John R. Lee 35 years ago. Dr. Lee proved that all the estrogen that is coming from food and water is having a devastating effect on our health. The rapid rise in breast cancer, uterine cancer, prostate cancer, weight gain, osteoporosis, feminizing of our boys, and early puberty of our girls, and also the destruction of natural killer cell function. Natural killer cells are our only protection from cancer and viral infection. Dr. Lee found that using natural progesterone, about 20 milligrams per day, would not only reverse osteoporosis, but would greatly reduce the cancer issues as well as dozens of other health challenges we face today. Visit our website, healthlinkamerica.com, to order the DVD on hormone imbalance. Learn how hormone imbalance destroys the immune system and get started on natural progesterone and Cyto-S. It will not only change your life, it may in fact save your life. Once again, that website is healthlinkamerica.com.
Are skyrocketing prescription costs draining your budget? If you don't have insurance or are taking medication not covered by insurance, the Powerhouse Savings Card can lower your prescription costs by up to 50%. Now you and your family can save 20 to 50% on all prescriptions. It's accepted by most pharmacies and mail-order pharmacies nationwide. No prescription card is easier to use. Just show your card and save 20 to 50% right on the spot. There are no monthly fees, just a one-time processing fee of only $4.95 for you and your immediate family. Stop paying full price for prescriptions. Stop going without the medication you need because it costs too much. Now your family can get the prescriptions they need at a cost you can afford. Call 1-800-963-0232 now and start saving money with the Powerhouse Savings Card. Call 1-800-963-0232. 1-800-963-0232. 1-800-963-0232.
Do you know the truth about cancer treatments? Do you realize that with all presently accepted methods, you are not correctly attacking the cancer and you are mostly fighting to survive the treatment? Do you realize that mutilating surgery, burning and poisoning of your entire system are totally unnecessary? But now it's cancer's turn to die with LaysMed Incorporated's patented methodology. Without cutting, bleeding, drugs, or damaging radiation, we can destroy skin cancer and breast tumors of any size without adverse side effects at our physician's office. Laser technology at its best. For more information, visit www.laysmedinc.com on the web. That's www.lasemedinc.com.
Call now, 501-255-0528. 501-255-0528. 501-255-0528.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're still talking about the situation up there in Wisconsin. Now, one of the reasons that soon-to-be ex-Governor Walker has been trying to use the police to end the protests is this claim that the protesters are causing a tremendous amount of damage to the state capitol building, and therefore simply as a matter of safety and so forth, that they should be gotten rid of. Of course, no concerns about safety when they were bolting the windows shut to keep people from passing food in there. And Governor Walker was going on with this whole idea, but it was going to cost $7.5 million to clean up the mess from the protests in the Capitol building, and therefore, you know, the teachers had to accept lower pay to pay for protesting the low pay. Well, now the Wisconsin officials are admitting that really the damage isn't that great. Their new figure is $350,000, and most of that is, you know, landscape restoration, which, frankly, I'd say let nature take its course. And the other, of course, is apparently they're now saying that the tape that was used to affix protest signs to the marble fixtures inside the building, the tape caused damage. And that's why they need $350,000 to repair all this damage. I'm sorry, sticky tape damaging the marble? I would think about suing the original building contractor if tape is able to damage the marble, because marble is a rock. And the reason it is used in these very expensive public buildings, you know, aside from the governor and the legislators can feeling important because they're in a marble building, is because it is supposed to be durable and resilient. And it's supposed to be able to handle the very heavy traffic that public buildings are supposed to be designed to deal with. So if the tape that was used to hang up the protest signs in Wisconsin is damaging the marble, then you better talk to that marble contractor, and you better talk to them with a lawyer. All right, moving along here over to Europe. As I mentioned earlier in the show, we're seeing this very bizarre story in the Telegraph, where the head of Great Britain's electrical grid is now saying that the British people are going to have to get used to the possibility that constant electricity, that is electricity that's always there when you turn the switch on, may be a thing of the past. In order to fight global warming and to deal with the rising oil prices, Great Britain is now going to be subject to rolling blackouts, which is going to be a real thrill for those people on electrically operated respiration machines in their homes. You know, time for your rolling blackout. Please hold your breath for the next 2 hours. And it's kind of hard to understand Great Britain as being a nation where the electricity is only on for so many hours a day, because that's really kind of third world thinking. But that's what we're seeing in the Telegraph. Now, it may be a scare tactic. The latest propaganda dodge may be saying, well, you know, you can have human rights and democracy in those Arab nations, or you can have cheap gas, but you can't have both, so it's up to you. So it may just be more of the scaremongering. As I mentioned earlier in the show, apparently, according to the latest figures, one of the reasons we have serious food shortages in this country is 40% of the United States corn crop is now being diverted to ethanol production. This is a boondoggle. It's one of those things that got put through, and it sounds really good as a soundbite. But ethanol production is not carbon neutral. First of all, there's all the carbon emissions from the process of farming the corn. Tractors, harvesters, trucks. It's not carbon neutral. The process whereby it's converted to ethanol is not carbon neutral. The only part that's carbon neutral is that, in theory, the corn took in as much carbon as is being burned for fuel. That's where the carbon neutral claim comes from, but it really isn't. Ethanol does not have as much energy as gasoline. You must buy and burn more of it to get the same amount of work out of your car as gasoline. And finally, ethanol is destroying the fuel systems of cars that are not designed to use ethanol. The new cars all are. The new cars all have fuel systems that are designed to work with gasoline or ethanol. But older cars, their fuel systems are dissolving. They've already banned ethanol over in Germany because of the skyrocketing costs of constant repairs to the car's fuel systems, which, by the way, also adds to the carbon footprint. The real problem with this entire environmental global warming movement is it's all about making money, and they do not think these things all the way through to the end to see if they're really good for the environment or not, because they don't care. As long as they can sell you that it's good for the environment and get your money, that's where it begins and ends. That is where it begins and ends. All right, we're coming down here on another break. Going to have a couple of commercials. When we come back, I want to talk about this video about this rally that took place in Orange County that just, you want to talk about Nazis? They're coming home to roost. We'll be right back.